So recently I had a question about rancid fats. Are they harmful? Do I have to worry about them? Let's talk about that. It is basically the incomplete or complete oxidation of a fat or an oil. Now, normally fats and oils come with their own antioxidants, like vitamin C, vitamin E, to protect this oxidation. But when something is either exposed to light or oxygen or heated or processed, you can start to destroy these antioxidants and create exposure to the delicate oils, and then they can actually start breaking down. And especially the unsaturated fatty acids. Saturated fats don't normally turn rancid because they're more saturated, they're more preserved. But unsaturated fats are the ones that are very susceptible to becoming rancid. So I'm talking about soy oil and corn oil and canola oil and cottonseed oil and even olive oil and nuts. So if you have these oils sitting on your shelf for a long time in your cupboard and they've already been opened, exposed to oxygen, they can turn really rancid. And I think pretty much everyone has some supply of certain nuts, whether it's walnuts or pecans or almonds, sitting in their cupboard that could be sitting there a bit too long. When an oil becomes rancid, it gives off a certain smell or taste. Sometimes it's musty, sour, bitter, metallic, but you'll identify it. But here's the thing, it's actually pretty toxic to the cells and even your genes. But of course, I'm talking about consuming them in, somewhat larger amounts. But even a small amount can irritate certain parts of the body, especially this first part of the small intestine, the bile ducts. It can create inflammation. It can create irritation and make it feel like your gallbladder is swollen. So mainly these oils can create a lot of inflammation in the body and free radical damage. And the big problem is so many people are consuming massive quantities of rancid oils without really even knowing it. For example, these oils right here, soy, corn, canola, they're all in the grocery stores, pretty much make up certain ingredients in over 60% of the foods in the grocery store. So you're constantly getting exposed to these oils, which are a lot of times rancid. Not to mention, you go to a restaurant, okay? And they're gonna actually reuse a lot of these oils over and over and over if you're consuming deep fried products. And I'm not just talking about fast food restaurants, I'm talking about other restaurants as well. So if you're eating some food at a restaurant and then you just feel kind of sick or bloated, especially underneath your right rib cage, one of the causes could be the rancid oils. So a couple things I would recommend, okay? With the nuts, I would make sure that you find a company that actually sells you fresh nuts and they're not sitting on the shelf for months and months and months where they turn rancid. And if you have the option, let's say you're at a health food store, of consuming the nuts, sometimes they keep them in those bulk trays to see if they're rancid or not. Definitely do that, because you don't want to start creating an inflammatory response in your digestive system just because you're consuming rancid oils. Another thing you can do with nuts is you can, when you get the nuts, keep them in the refrigerator, okay? And let's say you bought a lot of different types of nuts and you want to consume them. Take a small amount out, soak them in water, okay, and then overnight, and then you can dry them out. It's called germination. But of course, that's going to get rid of the enzyme inhibitors, which is going to make them more easy to digest, and you would have to consume them in a shorter period of time. But that way you can adjust what's being consumed, so you can keep the bulk of those nuts in the refrigerator, which will slow down the oxidation process. As far as these oils right here, I would even consume them because most of them are GMO, and so we had that extra factor which adds toxicity. Olive oil, I am very picky about my olive oil, and fresh olive oil has a real distinct flavor and a smell to it that you can differentiate very easily. Anyway, I have another interesting video on oils that I think you'll like. Check it out. Hey, before you go, if you're benefiting from any of my content, I would love to hear about your success story. Please share it in the link down below.